Welcome to a brand new episode of Unique Pathways presented by H3 Sports. I am once again your host, Ben Rekosh, and we have a great episode today talking about overcoming adversity, what it takes to be a team, what it takes to break ground on something, and the importance of the growth of women's baseball. I'm joined by Maggie Heaphy, who is a Charlottesville H3 local. She's now a student at Cal Berkeley over on the West Coast, and also Maggie Foxx, who is a baseball legend up in New Hampshire and now a softball player at Brown University. So really enjoyed this conversation with them, getting to learn about a growing sector of America's pastime, and just how they've made an impact on the growth of baseball, the growth of girls in baseball, the growth of women in baseball, and their story and their unique pathways to becoming who they are today. So really hope you enjoy this episode. Stick around to the end because it's a really, really good one filled with a ton of great nuggets. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Maggie Foxx and Maggie Heaphy.
Unique Pathways is sponsored by Piedmont Realty Holdings, building better together. Bellaterra Landscaping and Hardscaping Services. ECS Prosthetics, we come to you. Jeff Burton Consulting, charting your path to a successful outcome. Major League Mindset, results on and off the field. Blue Sky Property Management, own your experience. BSN Sports, the heart of the game.
I'm thrilled to be joined today by two women in baseball who are helping the sport grow in more ways than one. I'm talking about Maggie Heaphy and Maggie Foxx. Maggie Heaphy is a girls baseball advocate from Charlottesville, a current student at Cal Berkeley, and Maggie Foxx is a freshman softball player at Brown University. Thanks so much to these two guys for joining. Maggie and Maggie, hope you're having a good day and appreciate you sitting down with me and chatting about baseball for a little bit.
Of course, I appreciate you
for having us.
Yeah. So I want to first start with how I opened, in that you're both strongly passionate about women in baseball and improving the sport in the future and now. Why to you is now kind of the time that this sport and this change in the sport is finding a spark?
Oh, okay. I can go first. Yeah, so Maggie and Maggie, we're like known as the Maggies. We've been together for a really long time through baseball, and we've really been working together, playing together, but also working together for a long time to, help grow the game. I think that's a great question. I think now more than ever, women's sports is in the news. It's being talked about, finally, I'd say. And I think so many names in baseball, but also in other sports in general, women's sports being talked about. And I think baseball specifically that's included, the formation of the WPBL just announced, success with, a lot of female coaches who Maggie and I are lucky enough to have played for and know pretty well in the majors and everything. So I think it's been a long time coming. We've really, there are so many people who have been working so hard for so long to help grow the game, but this is definitely a great time for it. Yeah.
And
Maggie Fox,
yeah,
what do you
great
think?
answer, Hayes. To build off of that, I would say throughout the years, there's been just a constant influx of just women in sports, women in baseball, and even like you look on social media and you see all of these women's sports accounts that just have such a large following that's increased significantly throughout the years, and that's really created just such a positive trend for women's sports. And you think about Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers and Angel Reese and all of these women's basketball players who have just created for the WNBA, all of that growth and just exponential growth with that. And then women's hockey, women's soccer, you think of I don't know, Coco Gauff, all of these influential names. And then in women's baseball, you have names like Maggie Heaphy and Kelsey Whitmore and Olivia Pichardo, she's the first Division I baseball player at Brown University. And I don't know, for one of my classes, we're doing a documentary, and my segment is on her. So that's something special that's really never been done before. But it's just kind of just been a solid growth throughout the past even 3 years, or even 2 years, even the past year. It's just been just on the come up, and it's going to be exciting to see what happens.
You mentioned the social media aspect of it with all the accounts and with women's basketball growing and plenty of other women's sports growing. How important is that you've kind of seen for the growth of women's baseball? Because 15 20, 25 years ago, even 10 years ago, this kind of attention wasn't possible. And now with the reach and the possibility of social media, it is. So how do you kind of use that to your advantage?
I mean, personally, even just I don't know if you know what Baseball for All is, but it's the largest nonprofit girls baseball organization in the world, basically. I would say
Hmm.
probably definitely in the country, but theoretically in the world. But even if you look at their page, and Maggie and I have both been captains and junior captains and just big parts of that organization for pretty much as long as I can remember. But if you look at their page, they started with a pretty, I don't know, like I remember 3 years ago, it was like 2,000 followers. I think we're up to like 8 or 9,000 followers at this point, which is like
Yeah.
insane. And that just shows, I think, not just for women's baseball, but for women's sports, how people are becoming like there's attention that's being brought to it and not
Hmm.
just in a negative aspect, which I mean, previously, like it was kind of more negative. Like you've seen all those comments on posts like, "Oh, I would take you 500 feet," like dead center, like all of those comments. But then you look at the accounts and you see like now you see so many more positive comments than negative comments, and it really shows like the growth of these sports and how they're even. I don't want to get too political, but even with the current political
Yeah,
like aspect of things, but how everything's growing in a positive light for women's sports. And I
no
know
doubt.
Maggie can probably attest more on that.
No, absolutely. Just adding on to that, I mean, Maggie said it great, but I think we both kind of got involved. We've both been like playing with these organizations, especially Baseball for All, for kind of most of our lives, I think, at this point, for a long time. And with that, I think something I noticed was a big piece of that, a big chunk of that was during COVID. I think that's kind of when we were freshmen in high school. So, that was kind of when we were, I know it's crazy. We were like, starting to try out for our high school teams, kind of in that kind of awkward stage right there. It's where a lot of people switch.
Yeah.
And Baseball for All and a lot of these social media organizations, or just organizations on social media, I should say, did a great job of staying consistent in, producing content and having these programs and outreach for girls. And I think we've really seen that. Carry on to now. I mean, the tournaments we would go to before that, it
Hmm.
was, I mean, there were obviously some people there, but it's grown every single year exponentially. And it's amazing seeing the growth that it
And
has.
that's something I kind of have in my notes for later, but because we're on the topic now, this isn't a sport that's been around for 50, 60 years like the NBA or like MLB or the NFL or anything like that. So there's no real role model in this sport, right? The earliest girls baseball player I can remember was Monet Davis back around 2015, 2016. So you kind of have to manufacture that motivation for yourself if that's right. So I just want each of you to give some perspective on what it's like sort of building that up for yourself and being the groundbreakers because women's baseball, it was popular in the 40s and 50s, but really in the late 2010s is when it got back up.
Yeah. I'd say for me personally, it has been such a pleasure getting to see this growth.
Yeah.
Because I think for Maggie and I both, there are so many incredible women in the sport who we get to look up to, but that those numbers and the amount of people keep growing. And so now
Yeah.
when they're kids, who, are that age who are looking in the news and media, they have so many more people, and that number keeps growing again and again, which is amazing. I
Yeah.
think one of the kind of reasons, at least for me, and I'm guessing most people for joining, these girls' baseball programs and organizations like Baseball for All was it's so rare to, we all play at home, but it's so rare to like share experiences with other girls. No,
Right.
as awesome as it is to play with guys, no guy understands the experience that you have. And so meeting other people is such a special thing. Meeting other girl baseball players is such an amazing thing. And I think that's one of the many reasons Maggie's like my best friend. And we've
Hmm.
stayed in touch for 5 years over that because of that, because, we have these shared experiences that are so rare and hard to find. And so yeah, it's kind of a shared experience that we all kind of go through together. I remember there were probably a lot of calls between us over the course of high school seasons when we had rough games or, bad interactions with, other teams or, players, things like that. We have each other's backs always. And so that just keeps growing, which is just really great to see. So
Maggie Fox, I want to give you a little bit of a chance to shout out some of those names that you've been talking about. Who is it? Whether it's in the Baseball for All in MLB that we talked about a little bit. I know that there are a lot of people in the front office that are coming up now on coaching staffs. Maybe it's Monet Davis back in the 2010s that was a big figure back in Sports Illustrated. But who was it for you specifically that kind of helped you through this process?
So I don't know. I could name countless names. I think Monet Davis, she was like going off of that, she was big. Like I had her book. I think I've read it probably 10 or 15 times at this point. Especially when I was younger, like it would just be like an every night thing, like almost a ritual. But aside from Heaphy, like this girl right here, like as she was saying, we would talk like during the seasons, like almost every single night. And if we couldn't talk, we would text. It was basically like, how's your day going? Like, what's the season been treating you like? Like, how are the guys treating you? Like, for me personally, I got lucky, and those guys. I know I'm kind of going away from the question, but those
Yeah.
guys, the guys that I grew up with, were pretty much like my brothers, and like they've really truly accepted me. But on the other hand, like they don't fully understand the experience of being just like you're here and there's one of you and then there's 25 of them, and it's just such a
Hmm.
difference. So I would think personally, like if I were to pick out three people that have really, I have to do four people that would have really like been influential in being a woman in sports besides my parents. So those are my two people. Is Maggie Heaphy and Beth Greenwood. So I don't know if you know about Beth Greenwood, but she she is like 1,000 accolades to her name. But
Uh-huh.
so I grew up in Bedford, New Hampshire. She lives in Amherst, which is 10 minutes away. But she's 6 years older than me, but she's just been my mentor in baseball throughout it all. And like same with Maggie, like we would talk every night. But she's on the women's national team. She coached for the Phillies this past summer. She's now a pitching coach for Vassar, which is in upstate New York, and then she's done like
Yep.
so many other baseball things that are just so special. But she's just been such an influential person in my life that I like that has really motivated me to keep going throughout baseball.
That's awesome. Maggie, hey, if I want to direct the next one at you, you've been a member of the H3 Circle, what I'm wearing right now, for a very, very long time and have been true to the message that this organization tries to emphasize every day, right? H3 tries to make the game more accessible, more equitable to every people. And while you kind of seen that differently than a lot of other people and a lot of other student athletes coming up, how do you sense the impact of H3's mission coming through what you do and the change that you try to make every single day?
That's a great question. Yeah, so I joined I became a part of H3 I think when I was in oof, seventh grade, maybe sixth
Uh-huh.
grade. I played for we had a baseball team there coached by
Yep.
Jeff Burton, the founder and the main man, I guess I should say. And yeah, so I played under like the H3 name on several teams, I'd say throughout that until probably of about high school. And it was really my first introduction and in the Charlottesville or Central Virginia area, I should say, H3 was kind of a great introduction for a lot of young baseball players to
Hmm.
competitive, high level collegiate, potentially, collegiate looking to play in college or just
Right.
competitive travel baseball. And so I joined that for that reason, but I really came with a lot more than that out of it. It was really team driven and community based consistently, and I think that mission continues without a team itself.
Right.
Just the I guess amount of outreach and the amount of the work that this organization has done is so important and has had such an impact on my life and so many other lives that I can name. So yeah, so I think a big part of it is the board, the community around it. I mean, my parents were on it. Like I
Yep.
was Jeff Burton is been one of my probably my one of my favorite coaches of all time, but also just
Uh-huh.
a really a mentor to me. He's one of those people that is driven in everything he does, and I think that really says something about H3 and kind of the message, head, heart, hustle. I remember the first day I got there. I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, but
No,
um,
you're great.
the first day that I remember we kind of like got our jerseys and everything, they always would sit us down and say, what you're playing for is head, heart, hustle. That's what H3 is. That's what's important. They
Hmm.
would give out these Chick-fil-A milk. I'm not sure if you know about this, Ben. They would give out these Chick-fil-A milkshake hustle awards because
No.
we were like middle schoolers, and that was our motivation. So we get a free milkshake from Chick-fil-A if we had a diving play. So it really wasn't about success. It was if you tried, if you put it all out on the field, that's when you would get rewarded. And that's really what it was about. It's been so team driven, constantly. Everything we do as a team together. And I think that's really carried out in all the work that the organization has done. So yeah, that was a long answer, but
That's awesome. And I know
I
that
knew I
Jeff,
recognized that logo.
yeah.
I know that Jeff Burton will appreciate that too. I'll make sure he sees this. I read a thing that when Heaphy was in McIntyre Little League, it wasn't uncommon for girls to be in Little League and sort of mix in, and everybody was young, so you could play and nobody would bat an eye. But you were one of the first ones to take it a step further and say, no, I don't want to just play in Little League. I want to keep going. Do you remember what that point of quote unquote rebellion was?
Yeah, I'd say, to be honest, I get asked this a lot, and I really never considered softball. I think part of that is just kind of how, my dad kind of introduced me to baseball. I was obviously into baseball since day one, and I never really thought about softball. And I think that
Yeah.
was, for me, just kind of that, the idea of, this is kind of the one path for me. I didn't really, I guess I didn't really ever consider it. And, like you said, it's so common for girls to play in Little League. There were probably three or four other girls in at McIntyre Little League playing with me. But as you get older and age out of that, that's when a lot of people make the switch. And so for me, I just never really had the urge to, honestly.
Hmm.
Around then was also the time I think that I found a lot of these girls' baseball programs, was kind of when I was getting out of Little League. Um, and I never really thought of switching to softball, but if there ever kind of was that urge,
Right.
that these programs really helped me because
Okay.
they gave me people like Maggie or like so many of other of our friends that you could talk to and you could rely on, and who were going through the exact same thing. So
Yeah. Maggie, do you remember a point that you had like that when you were young? Maybe you were playing baseball and then someone told you that you should switch to softball and you told them no?
So if I'm going to be honest, I don't ever think that there was a point like that. I think it was more, so I'm going to take you way back just so I can kind of
Yeah.
explain. But so I got into baseball because of my dad. He's been in the sport as long as I can remember. The reason that I like that I live in New Hampshire is because he got a job with the double A affiliate of the Blue Jays. So we moved
Oh,
there and
awesome.
we've been there ever since. He doesn't work
Awesome.
for them anymore. But it was just that's kind of how I got into it was through him. And
Uh-huh.
so it was never like, hey, you want to play baseball? Do you want to play softball? It was I signed you up for Little League. We're gonna go to the field, and it's like it's time to play now. So I was like okay. Like I didn't, as Haiti said, like I didn't know any different. Baseball was just what I knew, and it's what I love. But I would say the one thing that really stands out that it's not like that crazy, but it
Yeah.
was when I was younger and I was playing. This was like when I was playing baseball and softball in the same season. I think I was on like it was like the season before I was on like five teams at once, which was crazy. But my mom brought me to one of the indoor training facilities in town because obviously it snows and when it
Yeah.
rains there's nowhere to play. And she was like, "Hey, there's this." I don't even know what she told me, but she was like, "Hey, do you have baseball?" And I was like, "Okay, cool." And I went, and it was a softball tryout. And I was like, and this is nothing against my mom at all, but it was an all-star softball tryout. And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." But she told me that it was baseball, so she could get me to go.
Yeah.
But it's nothing against my mom at all because it was a really good experience for me because then I ended up playing baseball and softball, and it gave me. I kind of stopped playing softball for a while, but I guess 'cause I've had two like starts with softball, I guess. So then and then now is more of it was more like I kind of just wanted to be able to have the opportunity as Heify was talking about earlier. It's different, completely different to play with all girls. It's
Right.
just a different feel, and you get this different camaraderie that you wouldn't get playing with all guys. Which no offense to the guys at all, like it's just different. And it's something you don't really know until you experience it. But that was kind of the reason where myself, I was nobody really forced me to play softball in college versus baseball. It was more on my own. Like I kind of want to be able to get a better education and play at a higher level Division One school. So that's why like I decided to kind of veer off the immediate baseball path. Decided
Going
to
back
switch to
to
softball. I know that's a long-winded answer. But
No, going back to your point right there, why do you think it's such a big difference to play on a baseball team of all females instead of you're on a high school team, maybe there's 15 men and then it's you. Is it just that mental shared experience or what?
I think Casey can also attest to this because we've basically had the same experiences in our lives in countless different ways. But playing on a baseball team with men or with guys, whatever you want to call them, um, if you're lucky, like I was, they were all super accepted. Like I've grown up
Hmm.
around them. I As I said earlier, they're my brothers. Like I could FaceTime one of them right now and he'd be like, "Hey, what's up? What do you need? Like you okay?" But they've all been great to me and nothing wrong with that at all. But then you get on a field with all girls and it's like you can 100% feel like you're yourself playing. Like you don't feel like you're being judged every time you set up to catch a pitch or every time you throw the ball back to the pitcher or you step in the box. It just
Hmm.
feels like you're playing baseball and it doesn't feel like there's any pressure to prove yourself because if you're a girl playing baseball with a bunch of guys, every little thing you do
Got
wrong, you're
it.
not just doing wrong for yourself, but you're doing wrong for the entirety of your gender.
Right.
But if you're playing with all girls, it's like you do something wrong, it's like, oh, it's okay. But if like
Right.
I don't know, there's just such a difference with it that it's nothing bad on the guys. It's just it's a shared experience versus you by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I, if it's okay, can I add on to that
Yeah,
for a second?
please.
I just say, just like Maggie said, I think, I don't know who said it originally, but it's like a very, what we always say is like, when you're playing on a guy's team, you're the girl who plays baseball. When you play on a girl's team, you're just like the second
Yeah.
baseman. It's just such a normal thing. And I think also on the other hand, um, fundamentally and kind of through the game itself, it reflects sometimes I've noticed. I think not to generalize, obviously this is not,
Uh-huh.
universal, but for the most part, in my experience at least, and I think Maggie would agree, I guess the ways in which guys and girls play can be different. Sometimes I think the focuses can be different in those experiences. The way they interact is very different, at least in my experience. Not necessarily better or worse, just a very different, I guess, outlook on the game.
Right.
Um, so, women's baseball it's not as much about, dude, I can hit this ball farther than you, or I can throw harder than you. Which it can be for guys sometimes. It's just, I know it's very, oversimplified, but in general, I think it can reflect in the game itself as well.
That makes a lot of sense. And kind of what you're saying, it seems like both the pressure is off you more, and when you're playing on a boys team, it's like the standard is higher for you, right? You can't just be a good second baseman. You have to be a great second baseman where everybody else on the team is just okay. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about two partnerships that you kind of alluded to with growing girls baseball, and that's with USA Baseball and that's with MLB, right? So um, Maggie Heaphy, I'll give it to you first because I have a follow up with Maggie Foxx. Talk a little bit about what each of those programs do and how you've been a part of them.
Yeah, so I'd say honestly, there are so many great we've had so many great opportunities in baseball, but definitely one that'll always stick out are those MLB and USA baseball partnerships. They have these programs that they have through, with each other twice a year, 3 times a year they have these
Yeah.
different baseball events. And that's part of their outreach program to kind of encourage girls in the game. So there's the Trailblazer series, which is for younger girls. There is the Elite Development Invitational, which is about 60, I think, high school age girls. And then there's the Breakthrough Series, which is the most exclusive, which is like 30, girls usually drawn from that pool. And they have,
Hmm.
tryouts or showcases like the Grit series, things like that. So they have kind of constantly this program running that encourages girls to stay in the game and keep in touch and keep playing. And all of these are coached by, USA Baseball, or former MLB players, USA Baseball coaches, and other players. And it's just a really, really great experience for a young athlete to
Yeah.
come out here and see, all these other girls who are, very serious about the game and who have very high aspirations and want to go far in the game. Um, it's something that always stuck out to me about the programs is you learn so much. It's a learning experience. It's
Right.
so much about baseball, but there are also classroom sessions about, recruiting, about mentality, about overcoming adversity that always stick with you. Like they give you a notebook every single time because they want you to take notes as much as they want you to, improve your game. It's about more
Uh-huh.
than that. And it's also about building relationships with, coaches, with other players because, as even though the community is growing, it's still limited and there still are, relationships that need to be built. So yeah.
That's awesome. Do you remember a moment you talk about meeting MLB players? Do you remember a moment being starstruck? Or I know you have a big outreach on social media with these MLB programs. Do you remember a moment like that sticking out to you?
Maggie might need to help me with this one because we've had very
Well,
similar interactions.
I
Yeah, you go first.
I would say like starstruck from like one of the MLB guys. I would say I remember I think it was the 2021 Breakthrough Series, Hafe, when Cliff Floyd and LaTroy Hawkins just showed up, and it was like, oh my gosh, like this is the big deal. Like these
Yeah.
are really high up baseball players. Like they have so much knowledge to share. Like aside from all of the women in baseball, like sometimes they'll bring in MLB guys, and it's like Bruce Chen, and it's like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like this guy has 15 years of experience in the MLB as a pitcher, or like LaTroy Hawkins or Cliff Floyd, and it's just like we're really
Yeah.
this lucky. We're
Yeah.
really this
How
lucky. But
how
then aside from that, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, how meaningful is it to you that these people with these big names and very, very busy schedules take the time out of their days to help a program like you're in and help the game that they're passionate about?
It
Absolutely.
just
Yeah.
it
Sorry.
really just makes it. Sorry, Hif. Can I go? Or you
Yeah,
go?
yeah, you go after.
Okay. It really just makes it feel real. Like
Right.
you have all the coaches, and you get to be with all of your friends from all over the country, all over the world, really. But then it really makes your mission of growing the game, like growing girls baseball, like a true thing, because you have these like professional baseball players who are at the highest level in their sport they could possibly be, giving you advice because they want your game to grow, which is just
Uh,
it's special and it's something that really hasn't happened. Anyways, go ahead, Hayes.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, adding on to that, Ben, like what you were saying, there are so many, I mean, these guys that have had literally played at the highest level that they possibly can for a long time, and they've had so many accomplishments in that. And the fact that they are, choosing their time now to come and not only, help the game of baseball grow, but expand the outreach and,
right.
with girls is a great thing. I think going back to, I never really answered the starstruck thing. I definitely say, yeah, the same names Maggie did, like Cliff Floyd and LaTroy Hawkins.
Hmm.
I remember just casually the first time I met LaTroy, who's one of the sweetest, most funny people I've ever met. Just casually mentioned that Patrick Mahomes is his like godson. Um, Threw that out there and took a selfie with me. And he said he was gonna send him. I don't think he ever really did, but like things like that, things that are just casual like that. And yeah, just knowing, I mean, he's taking the time out of his busy, busy life. They all are to come and make the game of baseball stronger for everyone is
That's
really
awesome. Um, Maggie Fox, one of the things that I read while preparing for this was that you were named top 40 for one of these programs, and it was a goal of yours to be not named top 20. I just want to know, sort of from a student athlete perspective and just from a growing the game perspective, how much value each of those numbers mean to you.
Um, what do you mean in terms? Sorry, what do you mean in terms of like
Like
top
being
20 versus
being
top
named
40?
being named to the top 40, what does that mean to you in terms of growing yourself as a student athlete? You can say, I am one of the 40 best people doing what I do in this section of a sport, in this section of America's pastime that is booming right now.
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, I know I have a lot more to be done, and I have a lot more
Uh-huh.
growth that I can accomplish throughout my sport. Like I know
Right.
I have to keep up I have to keep up my academics, which is my number one priority, especially at Brown. It's challenging, especially with being full swing, no
Yeah.
pun intended, in softball season. But then knowing that I also, along with that, have to keep up, like I have to eat well, I have to somehow find some time to sleep in the day, and I have to like aside from that, make sure that I'm still getting in the gym, I'm still going to hit. But being
Yeah.
top 40, it really it makes me uh make sure that I have my priorities straight, and that I know that like if I want to be
Right.
able to represent my country at the highest level, that I need to get all these things right. And a really good example for that, I mean, no better than I mean, right down the street, Olivia Pichardo. She's been on the team for 2, 3 years now, and she's a veteran there, and
Hmm.
she's like a big name everywhere, like a big name at Brown, a big name across the world. But
Yeah.
to to me, having her like, and we even went and hit the other day, which was super fun. And it's just like I feel like I have a celebrity around me every time I'm with her. But
That's
for
awesome.
me, just being able to have that opportunity to be with her and just have her as an example to be like, I'm trying to get like Olivia every single day. It really shows me that I have a lot more to do before I can have the opportunity to hopefully win a gold medal coming up.
That's
So
awesome. Ping ponging back and forth here with anecdotes. Maggie Heaphy, you were featured in Sports Illustrated Kids back in 2018,
I didn't know that.
featuring your
Uh,
stats from a baseball tournament in Illinois. I read that this was a surprise to you, but it was very meaningful. Tell
Mhm.
me the story behind that and just how cool it was to be featured in a magazine that you got every week.
Yeah, no, that this is a throwback for sure. Yeah, so it was actually a baseball for all tournament that, I think my coach and my dad had schemed to send this in, send my numbers in or whatever. And I think I was 10 maybe. It might not be right, definitely. I don't know. Something around there. It felt like a long time ago. And yeah, I would Sports Illustrated Kids magazine that I would get every single month it came out. I would go down, I think it came out on the Sundays or something. I'd go to my
Yeah.
mailbox and like get it, and I'd look through it all, and I'd always look at the like faces. I think it's faces in the crowd section. I'd always look at that and be like, I want to be there, I want to be there. And so I don't know if my dad knew that, but how into it I was, but somehow I made it there, and it was the most surreal experience. I remember that day I went to Barnes and Noble and I just like saw it there, and I, you know, kept it. I mean, it was just an amazing it was just an amazing thing, especially as a kid, seeing that and seeing that not only being recognized for that, but also having a girl playing baseball being recognized for that, and
Yeah.
seeing people want to see that, and people are going to see that, and people are going to read about that. And a lot of people reach out to me after it saying, my daughter saw this, this is amazing. That's really the goal. And
Yeah.
so that was an amazing thing, especially as being so young, and I had no idea this was going on, and it wasn't even intentional, but it happened. So it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
um, okay, first off, I didn't know that you're featured in Sports Illustrated. That's like actually so cool because I have like back home I have a collection like this big of all the Sports Illustrated for Kids magazines. So, and I remember always flipping through that and looking at the end and like whatever part it was and being like,
Yeah.
dang, I really hope that there's a girl in baseball in here soon. And I don't think we were friends in 2018. I don't think I knew you then.
I
I
don't
don't
think
think I
so.
knew you yet. But like I don't know, there's a chance I saw you in there because and that's just so cool because I always remember hoping I like vaguely remember like back here that maybe there was a girl playing baseball, one of those, maybe it was you. So anyways, I
First of
digress.
all, first of all, we'll try to include the picture in the YouTube version of
Oh,
this.
please don't.
Yes, please do.
Oh God, I don't know about
Um,
that. That's my
did that
McIntyre Little League picture. I remember that.
did that kind of give you a glimpse into what's possible, especially with the platform that you gave women's baseball that day?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that was the first time seeing that like in print. I know it sounds cheesy, but seeing that and
Yeah.
seeing kind of like I said, um knowing I can do this is one thing, but knowing that people, recognize that, and that this is a message that can be spread with the world is amazing. And again, like I was this is before I, really was old enough to like
Yeah.
understand, I think, the gravity that I was holding with that, and or understand, I guess, the how important that was. And even if no one saw it, I would still feel I still felt amazing, just because it was, me being able to be like, wow,
Right.
people care and people want to hear this story, and what I'm doing is important, which is so validating, especially in a time where, it's really easy to feel invalidated and feel, being a girl in baseball, it's really easy to feel kind of the opposite. So that was a really great
That's
experience.
awesome. I'll try to find a paper copy of that magazine and buy it.
I don't know. I remember Larry Fitzgerald was on the cover. That's all I got. That's all
Okay.
I remember.
I'll look through my collection. We'll see if we
All
have
right.
it.
So
So both of you were obviously great high school baseball players. And I'll let whichever one of you want to tackle this question first. But I know in Charlottesville, Coach Cox was great, and I don't know how it was in New Hampshire. But was there any skepticism about jumping to the next level from middle school, either from parents or from coaches or from your teammates or even from yourself, that was like, I really, really like this, but like this sport is my love, but do the cons outweigh the pros in this situation?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can hit this first. Um, to be completely honest, I don't know if I should say this. I probably thought about quitting
Yeah.
1,000 times, genuinely. And
Yeah.
I again was also lucky that, the Charlottesville High School baseball program was supportive all throughout. Coach Cox gave me a great opportunity from my freshman year all the way to my senior year. But
Yeah.
outside of that, there consistently, not just the jump from middle school, it was all the way up until I graduated. There were always, games where the other team would, chirp, say things. I'd hear parents were saying things, coaches were skeptical. It's something at that point I was already used to. It not going to say it gets easier necessarily, but that's something I've really been dealing with and I know Maggie has from a young age. No matter I'm so lucky, and I still say my experience in baseball has been
Yeah.
amazing, especially, Charlottesville is such a great place for it. And but yeah, the jump from middle school to high school is definitely a hard one. I always knew I wanted to do it because I knew I wanted to from a young age. But there's always going to be, the haters. There's
Right.
always going to be other voices or other opinions. And I've had to deal with that. I know Mag has too from Little League, since Little League, honestly. And
Uh-huh.
whether that's, in my own dugout or on the field or in the stands, wherever it is, that's there. And you kind of just have to know it is there, but it doesn't really matter. You're on the same field as them, you're wearing the same uniform as them, or, playing against them. Like,
Yeah.
they're not much better than you if you're playing in the same game as them. So can't really be that. Can't
Yep.
really be, but yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's pretty much the same thing. I didn't really play much of middle school baseball really at all. Because it was like more COVID and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But going from middle school to high school, it was always just like I always knew that I wanted to play and I always knew that I could do it, but it was more just of like how's it going to be accepted? Like I was accepted. I was really lucky, as I've said, and I was accepted like all up until my freshman year, and then I got there and nothing changed. Like the guys were, I was really lucky. The guys were great. My high school coach was great. Lucky enough for me, he already knew that I was coming to play. Like
Yeah.
he's the intermediate school gym teacher, so he already knew like he's
Okay.
like, oh, who's this girl running
Yeah.
around with a glove in fifth grade? So he already knew I was coming, and so his name's Coach Chapman, Billy Chapman, but he's been super supportive for me. And I don't know, another part that was pretty big for me was my dad was the freshman coach. So when I was a freshman, I was he didn't coach me, but I was lucky enough to have him there, and he taught me to advocate for myself. It wasn't necessarily him advocating for me; it was me advocating for myself. But I got pretty lucky, and there wasn't really um much negativity from like the opposing teams. Like occasionally I'll hear something, or some
Hmm.
guys will take some extra bases on me just because they feel like they could. Which
I can.
granted I should have thrown them out. But I don't know, I got pretty lucky, and I like Heaphy and I would have conversations every night. Like you look back at our texts and it's just like these giant text messages about what we're doing and how we can better support each other, because that's truly what gets you through high school baseball as a girl, is to have your support system.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Can
awesome.
I add was one more thing that I forgot to say?
Yeah,
I just
please do.
say, just in terms of my own experience and the switch specifically from middle to high school, I think H3 was probably the biggest influence for me. I think that program gave me so much confidence, not only as a girl, but just as an athlete. Like they prepared
Yeah.
all of us. I remember, it was a weird time because our freshman year was COVID and we were kind of,
Hmm.
dealing with that. But H3 had a middle school team. I went to like a small middle school that didn't have a baseball team. That was actually an all girls middle school. But yeah, so like I played on the H3 middle school team. They had all these opportunities. They were so focused on, preparing us for the next level, whatever that was, if it was high school and then college and then, whatever. So that was really playing at that level and playing with that team and under those coaches definitely helped me out. Not just as a girl, but just as an athlete, as a baseball player.
That's awesome. And yeah, I know Jeff will really appreciate that. Um, I know you've heard this a lot of times, but when I tell you that you were the only female baseball player in all public high school in Virginia, um, does that to you sense bravery? Does it sense individualism? Does it sense isolation? Does it sense accomplishment? What does that mean to you?
I'd say every word you just said, I've definitely felt at some point, and so many
Yeah.
more. At this point, I think it's baseball's been one of the biggest things in my life for as long as I can remember. But that accomplishment specifically is one that I yeah, I'll
Yeah.
always be grateful for, honestly, because I'll always be grateful that I was given that opportunity. I mean, I know a lot of several girls who weren't given that opportunity, who were denied
Yeah.
and weren't allowed to play. A lot of good friends of ours. And so, a lot of it's gratitude, truthfully, that I was able to prove myself and able to, get out there and just put on the jersey. But no, everything you said, it's, it can be isolating, it can be hard sometimes, it can be awesome. It can be, all of it. It's
Yeah.
a lot of emotion in there that's built up over the last whoever knows how long.
Yeah.
Virginia is Central Virginia is a great baseball community, and I really was so lucky to grow up there, because of, the networks and the connections and relationships that you build with people and
Yeah.
with coaches. And I think that's just it's mostly gratitude, I would say.
Well, I can attest personally that you were a fun second baseman to watch and certainly loved by your teammates.
Thank you.
No
And
teammate had a bad thing to say about you.
I don't know. I will say we were pretty lucky that, the press box, we had a really great announcer for some games. And I think he really carried it.
Well, thank you for that. Um, Up in New Hampshire, you were the first female catcher in Division One baseball history in New Hampshire. You were also named the Defensive Player of the Year at Bedford High School in 2023. First of all, that's a pretty big award.
Thank
No
you.
matter your year, your level, your gender, your school, anything like that, that award is awesome. But just kind of along the same lines, which of those emotions did you feel on a daily basis?
Um, Again, wonderful question. I would say pretty much, I don't want to be boring,
Yeah.
and repeat exactly what Happy just said, but literally always says it perfectly. I would say she's gonna kill me after this. I would say the biggest things for me, besides like gratitude and just being able to just basically just be where your feet are and just know that kind of whatever you're going through right now, if it's good or bad, it's always gonna end. And so you just kind of I don't know, a big thing on our high school baseball team was like the mental side of the game.
Yeah.
And so there's this video by his name's it's this former either Navy SEAL or Marine, I can't remember. His name's Jocko, but he put this
Okay.
video out on YouTube, and it's literally it's just like good. It's like the power of good, and it's so
Yeah.
whatever happens, no matter if it's good or bad, there's always gonna like you just say good, and there's always gonna be a good outcome that you can get out of that. And so that kind of stuck with me through like we started doing the mental side of the game like my sophomore year. So sophomore through my senior year. So 3 full years of baseball. It was basically just like whatever adversity I'm facing right now, like I don't know. I guess the best emotion to describe would just be good.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna end up getting through it.
That's
And
awesome.
that sticks with me now. Like we got the personalized gloves, and that's on my catcher's glove, like right here. So
That's cool.
I don't know. That
That
would be
sort
biggest
of
thing.
that glass half full mentality, right? Just all the time. I also read that you were a five sport athlete in high school. Is that true?
Yep.
Not all at the same time, but yes, over the course of my 4 years, yes.
What were those sports?
So I played soccer, baseball, basketball. It's New Hampshire, so I skied, and I threw the shot put for 2 years.
Awesome. So this is
And I,
something I
So,
can
this
I
is
also
something
add, Maggie, how
yeah.
many state championships did you win?
oh hey, why you gotta do this?
Exactly. She didn't just play them. She killed.
A couple here
Yeah,
and there.
I
This
felt it.
this is something that I like to ask athletes that played and were great at multiple sports, especially for baseball. Like in basketball and in soccer, you see some of that agility and that footwork. Skiing, obviously, not an easy sport. Neither is shot put. So, how do you sort of use some of those skills that you develop in other sports? And hey, if you can join in too, if you have anything to say, how do you use some of those skills that you develop in other sports to really accentuate and make you excellent at the sport that you are great at?
So I'm just gonna put it out there. I am not good at basketball by any means. I just can set picks, and that's basically it. But
That's
anyways,
important.
so in a sense, yes. So I don't know. And Hafey knows this about me. I just can't really sit still. So that's thing
Yeah.
one. And then thing two is I just love to play. Like I
Yeah.
love to compete. I love to be out there with my teammates. Like I have a good time. Like I'll laugh with music going, I'll be dancing. Like just that's why I chose to just play as many sports as I could and to just kind of just keep playing random things throughout the years. But I think it's helped me with baseball because I don't know, personally for shot put, like you get to get in the weight room every day for
Yeah.
track. Like it was indoor track, so you get to be in the weight room every day after school for pretty much as long as you want. You get to work
Uh-huh.
on these different muscles, and soccer was always good because even if I really wasn't playing much, I was still conditioned and I was still using my body in a different way. And instead of just being stagnant in one sport, like I learned how to do a bunch of different things that previously, if just playing baseball, I wouldn't be able to do. And I don't know, personally, like I miss it. I miss it. So
Yeah.
the building that I'm in right now, it has a bunch of different, like, it's a multi-use facility, and so you can play so many different sports in here. And like during practice, sometimes there'll be people throwing the shot put, like on the track team, and I'll be like, "Hey, coach, like, do you mind if I'm like, Coach, I miss this. Can I go and play?" But
That
so I think she
competitive
gets a bit
fire. That's
annoyed with that.
awesome. That's
Exactly.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Another thing I know about Maggie Heaphy is that in addition to being a great baseball player, she's a strong sense for media. And as far as I know, she kind of developed a blog ever so slightly to document her growth and the growth of this sport and something she's really passionate about. So, Maggie, could you tell me a little bit about that and just sort of what your motive with that is?
Yeah, so I actually started Maggie and I were in the same program for this. It was through Baseball for All. We were in this program called like the Junior Captains and then turned Captains program. And it was pretty much a leadership kind of focused I guess, program for,
Hmm.
girls baseball players who wanted to kind of give back and grow the game. So it wasn't, playing. It was more, we worked on a project throughout, however long it lasted. I think it was like 6 months every time, but we did it a
Right.
few times. So, and we had projects that we worked on, and for me, it was really not to go back to this, but it was during COVID, I think, was when I had the idea, and it was the idea of not only is girls baseball isolating itself
Yeah.
regularly, but in COVID even more so when you can't see
Right.
people.
Right.
And so I wanted to kind of have this network of connection and giving back. It's always the greatest gift for me was truthfully probably in baseball is the people that come with it. It's meeting my best friends and every girl should not only be encouraged to keep going in the game, but
Yeah.
also find their network and their community. And I think that was kind of my drive for it was to kind of give back, especially in the time where it's really hard to connect with people. And even though it was online, I think I still it was something that I really enjoyed doing. I really yeah, need to get back on that. But
Yeah.
but no, it was a great thing. It was a website. I had a short blog and then there was this like scholarship fund that I had for equipment in COVID. And so
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it was
That's
a
really
really,
cool.
really cool experience. But honestly, I need to give the credit to Baseball for All for that program. We had we were paired with other younger or older, depending on which
Hmm.
one we were on, people. So I had a mentor and then several mentees, I guess,
Hmm.
that were younger. And so that was just another great part of it. And I know Maggie had her own projects as
Yeah.
well, which is great. So yeah.
Do you remember how many posts you made and what some of the topics were with that?
I don't remember. That's a great question. I remember the main one I did. I went back and deleted a few. Um, I think kind of post COVID because I
Yeah,
I was this isn't I remember but the main one I did was I think my junior year I wrote a really long kind of thing about just my experience in high
I
school
remember that
and
one.
playing in high school. Yeah. Which is probably the one of the biggest things I did with that in the blog sense at least. Um so that was probably the one that kind of carried on post COVID. I think a lot
Yep.
of it was kind of based on, connecting with people or just like practicing, skill based during COVID. But that was
Yeah.
definitely the one that kind of carried on and that was personal to me. Um, yeah, I think that was the main one. I don't remember the number and all, but yeah, I don't know if that answers it.
Um, Fox, we just learned about what Maggie Heaphy's project was for that program. Do you remember what your project was around that time?
So I had a bunch of like, so my main one, so I did this thing called New England Girls Baseball, which is always really hard for me to say. But New England Girls Baseball was basically we would do like a couple clinics a year, and I would get some girls from around my area,
Hmm.
and along with Beth, who I mentioned earlier, and Jackie Reynolds, who she's a coach at UMass Boston now, so it's a D3 obviously in Mass, and then my dad, who's really he's been a huge advocate for like I can't say enough about him, but
Yeah.
he's been the biggest advocate for girls baseball and for me and just just all of that pretty much ever. But with those people, we made New England girls baseball and we did a bunch of like little clinics here and there, basically skills based. And it was in the summer you get popsicles after and just like just random clinics to show girls like, hey, there's these girls that are older than you and they're really good at what they're doing and you have an
That's
opportunity to get
fantastic.
there. And this is how. And then another thing that I randomly did because I couldn't really think of anything else to do. Um, I did some podcasts for it, like 3 or 4 little tiny podcasts. When I say little tiny, I mean like 1 minute. And
Hmm.
those ended up even transitioning into my senior project for high school, which was that was pretty fun. Like I would interview like a couple women in baseball figures every now and then, and it would just help evolve into kind of a safe space for girls to go if they really needed anything, like any advice. So
That's really cool.
thank you.
So yeah, so I want to move on just a little bit, because time is dwindling. As high school was wrapping up for both of you, you both had decisions to make, as does any high-level student athlete. And I kind of want to go into Maggie Fox's story first. So you said that you had opportunities to play Division 3 baseball or Division 1 softball. Obviously, you ended up choosing Division 1 softball. That was at an Ivy League institution. Was it sort of daunting to go back into a sport that you hadn't played in a couple years? And what went into the overall decision?
So yes, it was daunting to go back into softball, especially like they're two completely different sports, and I'm still
Yeah.
learning little nuances of softball now. Like I think my coach is probably like, Maggie, that's enough questions. But I'll ask her random questions throughout practice, and just be like, hey, what's this little obstruction rule? But
Yeah.
basically taking it back to like into my sophomore year of high school, I was like, I really got to start this recruiting thing. Like I know I want to play a sport in college, but just which one is it? And then I kind of went through my options, and I did some of the girls baseball recruiting stuff through baseball for all and all that, and I figured out that I thought softball was going to be the better option for me.
Uh-huh.
And so I was just emailing countless coaches, like hundreds of emails and stuff like that, calling people, going to camps, just really trying to get my name out there because as a girl in baseball, it's hard to try to break into the softball circuit when you're
Uh-huh.
not on these softball travel teams that travel across the country every weekend. So for me, it was really just using my network and the network that I've built throughout girls baseball to try to build whatever I could out of that. And then I ended up getting a couple offers here and there, and then eventually settled on Brown just because it was really what I wanted academically
Yeah.
and athletically. I thought that it was a great fit for me as well. I could just have an opportunity to play softball at the Division 1 level and go to a pretty well-rounded institution. So
Yeah.
I was thrilled once I got this offer.
That sort of led me into my next question right there. How impactful was the Ivy League academics into your decision, and what degree are you pursuing at Brown?
So what degree am I pursuing is a great question. I'm undecided, but
Okay.
with Brown, little shameless plug here. There's this thing. It's called the Open Curriculum, which has been around since 1969, and basically there's no. You can kind of pick and choose where you want to go with your academics. So you don't have to declare a major until the end of your sophomore year, which I am not going to declare one anywhere before that.
Hmm.
Um, or so you can kind of go wherever you want with your academics. So there's no prereqs. Like you can take kind of random classes. Like for instance, I'm taking that documentary class I mentioned. I'm taking this random Greek philosophy class, the psychology class, and I can never remember the last. Oh, stats class.
Oh,
So just like random classes here and there, and then from there you can kind of delve into if you want to take a concentration. They call it concentrations. A
yeah.
concentration that's already a real thing, or if you want to go and make your own. So I might, who knows, I might end up making my own. But that the opportunity to be able to make my own major or concentration, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah. That's really cool.
that was thank you. That was a big reason why I chose Brown because I the only thing I've ever really known is that I wanted to play a sport in college, but I never really knew like what I wanted to do academically. And Brown's given me the opportunity to choose what I want to do in the academic world versus just kind of having everything chosen for me.
That's awesome. Speaking of
Thank
great
you.
academics, Maggie Heaphy ended up at Cal Berkeley after high school. Um, Obviously not playing baseball anymore. Was that a difficult decision for you? And were there any offers at any level to keep playing?
Yeah. So I think that throughout everything that Maggie and I have done together, this is probably the not only difference between us, but one of one
Pretty
of
close.
the we're very similar in many ways. I mean, we have the same name, obviously, and
Yeah.
we kind of went through the recruiting process. I went through I looked at softball and baseball, and I went to several camps for both. I played competitive travel baseball until I think my junior year of high school. So a lot of that obviously came with college recruiting camps and stuff like that. For me, it was probably one of the most difficult decisions I've ever made is stepping away from, the game. And
Yep.
for me, I went to a few, D1 softball camps and it was how do I say this? It was I think I realized through that I'm really glad that I went and I'm really glad that I got this experience and I, had the play, playing anywhere at a high level is amazing. And getting to be part of even for a few days, these like high level collegiate programs were great, but I just never really saw myself there and I never
Yeah.
really fully saw myself being able to commit to it. And for me it was really just kind of weighing out my priorities. I knew if I wanted to keep going on the baseball route, I probably would not uh be able to go to the kind of school that I, want either academically or just
Uh-huh.
socially or in general. I kind of always wanted to be at a bigger school. So it's totally one of the hardest decisions ever. Being my first year not on a team is crazy because it's
Yeah.
been, that forever. Um, I also, Maggie knows this, I am very injury prone and I battled kind of injuries at the worst times for recruiting. So my junior summer, was it my junior summer? Sometime um in
Concussions.
both recruiting and in just baseball in general. I think it was, I don't know, the first year, Maggie, I don't know when it was, junior or sophomore, maybe sophomore year.
You
Um
got like 5 concussions. Not that
yeah,
many,
I
but it
got a
was a
few
lot.
concussions, so that kind of slowed things down. So it was just kind of a with both, the USA baseball pipeline, I wasn't able to try out for that and with that and then also recruiting it was pretty bad timing, but I think everything happens for a reason and
Yeah.
I still want baseball to be in my life forever and I think it will be in whatever form that takes. But yeah, it was definitely a hard decision, but it was just a weighing of priorities and I think not to get cheesy here, but I think it's totally okay to make that decision and to
Yeah.
prioritize your academics or your other interests in things. I think there are so many different pathways to go down in baseball, and I think we're lucky enough to have so many role models now in front office jobs and in media, things like that show you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'll give you the same question. What are you pursuing with your academics, and how are you using kind of that media sense, which I think you're doing a little bit, to your advantage at Berkeley? And then follow up to that, how are you trying to stay connected to the game, even though you're not on a team anymore?
Yeah, that's a great question. So studies wise and I guess academically, I'm um not declared yet either, and I'm not 100% sure which path I want to go down, but
Yeah.
I'm most likely going to do a media studies and journalism that route. Berkeley doesn't have a journalism major, but they have a journalism minor, and so media studies is kind of like the
Yeah.
main career for that. It's just like communications. Um, I've also have kind of an interest in film, so I've potentially am thinking about double majoring in that as well. If you can't tell, I love cameras and things, so I really either journalism or whether it's in sports or just outside of it, it's definitely something I want to pursue. I'm in some clubs here that focus on that. And
Yeah.
baseball wise, like I said, it's been really difficult. It's been really difficult to not have practice at this time every day, like right after like have these scheduled things, and finding the time to still be involved has been definitely difficult, and I'm still
Yeah.
truthfully still looking to be more involved. But it's really, you kind of get what you put in. If it's something you really love and it's something that you want to pursue, like I do, you find your own ways to be involved in it, and I think I always will in some way. So yeah.
That's awesome. A couple more before we wrap up for each of you. What's next for women in baseball? Why should people that are listening or watching this right now pay attention to this section of the sport that you both care really, really passionately about?
Um, if if you were to think of women's baseball as a stock market, it's all green and it's all going up.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's really something that everybody needs to invest in, pretty much immediately because women's baseball is growing from all aspects of the game. You look at Little League. There was even like a girls' baseball Little League. I don't really think it was like a World Series, but it was a tournament. And baseball for all, they went from like 200 girls at their tournaments to I think, and that's I don't know, give or take about 15 teams. But now it's
Yeah.
I think they had 42 teams there last summer,
Wow.
which is insane. And there's women's growing the game in college. I think we're in double digits for women that are in college baseball now, and ton of coaches, women's coaches, ton of women in the front office.
Uh-huh.
There's tons of women's coaches in the minor leagues, in the major leagues, and then even you look at the women's national team, and they won a silver medal in the Women's Baseball World Cup this past summer. So I think, or I don't think, I know that women's baseball is a game that's growing and that everybody really needs to realize that it's happening and it's like there's nothing that's going to stop it. So that's people need to see that, and it's completely exponential, and it's not going to plateau anytime soon either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going off of that, Maggie and I have been involved in this world for a really long time. We were at the first, not first, but some of the early baseball for all tournaments when, yeah, there were like, didn't have enough, you had to kind of have those free agents on different teams, playing a girl from California had to be on the Boston team because they didn't have enough. It was very, it was hard to find. It was small, and every single year it has consistently just grown and grown and grown. And I'm so lucky to have seen that and have been a part of that.
Yeah.
While that was happening, there's so many names that can be named going back to this. Like, I know we kind of talked about this before, but the first woman who played baseball who I know of was Monet Davis. And
Yeah.
that was, I mean, it's just kind of probably for like our age and our time, just because I was in Little League at the time as well. But I could name hundreds of influential women now who have had an impact on my life in the game. There's so many of our friends and, mentors who are still playing and still coaching. There's Kelsey Whitmore, Veronica Alvarez, Olivia Pichardo, obviously. Elise Berger is like playing at Bard. She just had her collegiate debut yesterday or a few days ago, and she's one of our best friends.
Yeah.
And yeah, just seeing that growth and seeing seeing them get the recognition they deserve is really, really incredible. So yeah, it's going up exponentially, and I'm so excited to see how it keeps growing.
That's incredible. And I hope people that are listening and watching right now can appreciate the level of work, honestly, that has been put into the amount of change that has been made, even in just the last 5 or 10 years. So if you think about what life will be like 5 to 10 years from now, it's just incredible for what could happen and what could be. We'll close it out with the same question that I ask every single person that comes on the show. And I'll give it to Maggie Heaphy first. Um, but this can be about baseball. It can be about school, life, cooking, whatever you want. You could take it wherever you want to go. What is one great piece of advice that someone has given you and you would like to share with the world?
Wow. Okay. Can I do like two potentially?
Sure, you can do
Okay,
two.
sorry. I know I've talked a
No,
lot.
you're totally good. The
First
more the
thing,
merrier.
first thing I'd say baseball specific. This is kind of geared towards coaches, teammates, mostly people who are, I guess, either coaching or on a team with a girl in baseball. I'd say the greatest gift for me, no matter what the level is, no matter where it is, the best thing is feeling like you're on the team and like you're
Yeah.
regular, you're one of the normal ones. Going back to age 3, Jeff Burton would yell at me constantly, and that was the best thing ever because he treated me like he'd treat anyone else.
Hmm.
He'd get on me for being late or, challenge me just as much as he challenged any one of the guys, whether that's either side going too easy or not. They're both being finding that middle ground as a female athlete is really important. I've been so lucky to have been given these opportunities to play, and especially under coaches and with teammates who have not only just let me be there, but treated me like one of them, is
Yeah.
really the greatest gift. The second thing I'd say is I'm gonna go with kind of a, how do I say this? The what you get is what you get out of it is what you put in.
Hmm.
Things will come out. Things will come up no matter what. Injuries, whatever adversity that you have to face will always come up, especially as a girl in the game. But controlling what you can control, which is how you approach every game, how you practice, how hard you work, that's what's gonna matter. I've had so many people, I just to be honest, Maggie Foxx here, I'm not trying to hype her up too much, but she's the hardest worker I've ever met in my entire life. And that's why she's at this high level, and why she's going to
Yeah.
continue to grow is because this kid hits every day. She lives every day. She does that. No matter what we face and no matter what adversity, which we can't control, happens, what you can control is how you respond and how you get back up. And this is a great example of that. And all of the other names in baseball and in life are the great example of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that is amazing, and I got chills listening to that. I can run through a wall right now, but I won't. And I'll leave the floor to Maggie Fox.
First off, thanks, Faith. Love you. Um, and we really are best friends. I think you can probably tell that.
Yeah,
But like even 2 nights ago we called for like 45 minutes. So she's always been like a rock basically for me.
yeah.
Um, but best piece of advice, I think I might have two. Sorry about that. But my first one, so I love Jackie Robinson. He's been my favorite baseball player besides Maggie Heaphy, since since forever. But so one of the big things that he said that I think has stuck with basically anybody who knows Jackie Robinson is a life is not important except in the impact it has on other lives, which
Hmm.
I think I don't know that really sticks out to me. It was my senior quote. It's even in Building 42 at the Jackie Robinson Training Complex, which that's one of the best places that I've ever been.
Yeah,
That's it's in Vero Beach, Florida. But a life is not important except in the impact it has on other lives. To me, it means first off, treat everybody like golden rule, treat everybody as they should be treated, and second of all, like do work hard and do what you're supposed to do and kind of always put your best foot forward because you never know who it's impacting and you never know what other people are dealing with. So might as well treat everybody how they should because your life is not important except for how you impact other people and how you make them feel. So
yeah.
I guess that's my one piece of advice for now. We'll go with
That's
that.
yeah, that's really cool, and I think that rings true, right? Like, and they both of your points kind of connect to each other, right? You get what you put into it, and what you put into it is a lot of the meaning in relationships. So, yeah, that's a great way to end it.
I'd also say one more thing. Run, run. If you're playing baseball, learn how to be fast because I'm not fast and I really wish I
Me
was.
either. Me either. I wish I was
That's
fast.
just some
Get
that's
in the
just
weight room.
Yeah,
Yeah, get in the weight room, get sprinting,
yeah.
and yeah. Actually, Ben, I remembered my second piece of advice. If it's okay
yeah,
if I
please.
share that, but if you're a girl in baseball or a girl in sports at all, or even just a dude, like whatever, find your people and
Yeah,
be able to stay present where you are instead of like there's as I said earlier, there's always going to be something good that comes out of this, but find your people because they'll help you through whatever you're going through.
perfect. I really appreciate both of you taking some time today. We covered a range of topics, overcoming adversity, mental toughness, but I think that the main theme I've come down with is togetherness, the importance of people, the importance of doing what you do with who you love, not doing what you do solely for the purpose of achieving a goal. But in life, we're here to meet people, and I think both of you have demonstrated that over and over. So, Maggie Heaphy and Maggie Fox, it's been a pleasure getting to learn about some of your experiences with girls in baseball, women in baseball, and just the growing sport and what you two have done to impact it. So, I really appreciate you both taking some time to talk with me on this show, and you embody the title of what we call our show, Unique Pathways. Your pathway is certainly unique, but you're helping make those other unique pathways for future girls and women down the line. So Thanks so much to you both, and I hope that everyone listening really enjoyed this conversation because I sure did.
I
Thank you,
appreciate
Ben. Really
it.
appreciate
Yeah.
you.
Thinking about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Once again, thanks so much to Maggie Foxx and Maggie Heaphy for joining me on Unique Pathways, this episode of the great show presented by H3 Sports. Really appreciate the two of them sharing some of their stories, and really appreciate everybody for tuning in this week, last week, and all of the weeks, honestly. We've been having a lot of fun here in season 3, and I hope you've been enjoying it as much as we've been having fun making it. So please just remember to like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Click that follow button or subscribe button on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, excuse me. Give us a 5-star rating if you are so inclined. And if you want to go a step further, leave us a comment on YouTube saying maybe something you liked about the episode or a question you have for next time. So thanks once again to everybody for tuning in. Thanks to the entire H3 board for making this show possible, including Andy Huffmeyer and Jeff Burton. Thanks one more time to my guests today, Maggie Foxx and Maggie Heaphy, and stay tuned for another great conversation next week on Unique Pathways presented by H3 Sports. I'm Ben Rekosh.
Unique Pathways is sponsored by Piedmont Realty Holdings, building better together. Bellaterra Landscaping and Hardscaping Services. ECS Prosthetics, we come to you. Jeff Burton Consulting, charting your path to a successful outcome. Major League Mindset, results on and off the field. Blue Sky Property Management, own your experience. BSN Sports, the heart of the game.